Hi friends, welcome to 8 at 3, a show, if you can call it that, a show that's in the form of a discussion on a few themes and topics in the Qur'an and various things going on in our lives, especially during the Ramadan period right now. It's actually for anyone, but our main target is really new reverts, some sort of place to go to for casual discussions that are not in a formal setting and that are more relevant to their daily lives, I guess. And it's substantial and it's substantive as well in some aspects, but then it's also quite interesting because it talks about current issues that are going on and it ties them in. So I hope that we can all gain something from it. It's like an online, non-interactive sort of halaqah for reverts and other Muslims alike. But of course, it's open to all, even if you're not Muslim and you want to, have a glimpse into what goes on behind certain perspectives in Islam, sort of based on the Qur'an. That's quite okay as well, because we're open to sharing. Have a listen, I guess. Thank you. So in this first episode of 8 at 3, we are going to discuss all these themes that can be traced back to Surah Al-Waqiah and also Surah Al-Falaq. We would like to delve into the themes of provisions and how we view certain things in life. It was a big thing in the community, I guess, a few weeks ago. Well, a few days ago. It all seems like, meshed when you're in lockdown, right? It's quite, it's I understand. Most of you would have heard about, the whole fiasco about the home-based businesses, and I know it's kind of after the fact now, but it still remains relevant, and I think it's something that needs to be discussed. Although it has been discussed in many forums, well, fora, if you want to be specific, yeah. Anyway. It has been discussed a lot online, and it has been quite, there's been a lot of heat and smoke, but not much light, I think, especially if you look at it from an Islamic perspective in that sense. Because, okay, so here's the thing, what happened was somebody was being blamed for a lot of home-based businesses, mainly and namely dealing with food, being unable to operate during this lockdown period. And in Singapore, a lot of the people in the community were affected and have been affected and are still affected by the lockdown, by the general decline in the economy. So a lot of them have lost jobs, a lot of them, have husbands who have lost their jobs, and they don't know what to do, and, they have no other means of surviving, especially for those of the people who have actually a lot of financial responsibilities, and parents of special needs children, of the elderly, of the sick, dependents that that they absolutely have to run these food businesses from home because, you know, they can't go out to work and everything. And I get all of that. I get all of that because I know personally some people who fit that description. And, you know, they are my friends, and these are people that that really need the income just to get by. And that was the thing, because a lot of people felt that prior to this whole hoo-ha about it, a lot of the general public felt that, oh, people who are, you know, selling food from home or home bakers, they're all doing it for fun, for, you know, like a hobby and things like that. And I can tell you that a lot of us, and that includes myself, rely on this as a sole form of living, because we can't, you know, we can't get a job elsewhere, or there are no options for us, things like that, you know. Whatever the situation might be, there are a whole lot of people who actually do have to depend on this as a sole form of income. So the general misconception that people are doing this for, you know, extra income, like, you know, as a side thing on top of their you know, salaries, was debunked, because the rage with which a lot of these people responded when, you know, the incident happened was definitely palpable. Yes, definitely, because this was all they had, or this was what they thought they had, and there were no other options. And because, you know, Ramadan was coming at that time, and, you know, traditionally Ramadan has always been a very blessed month for us Muslims, because our provisions, our rizqi was always, you know, somehow or other better. I don't know if it's cultural, or I don't know if it's, you know, it goes down to the, you know, Islamic concept of Ramadan being such a blessed month, but it is definitely true that Ramadan was always a month where people could get twice their income, 3 times their income, their regular income in other months. And it's a very testing time when people are told that they can't do this business, when people are told they can't, you know, they can't conduct their business in such a situation. So basically, there was someone who had apparently, you know, quite a large following, who had, you know, influential status in society as I think she's an actor or something, on a provincial, local, you know, TV station. And I never knew her before this whole thing. So, and I have no idea who she is. I just saw the things that people forwarded to me, the things that people were discussing online, people were, you know, sharing on their walls and things like that. And basically what happened was that she was being accused of meddling with other people's rice bowls, or, you know, like breaking people's rice bowls by making complaints to the authorities about home-based businesses. And for me, it doesn't have any bearing at all, because I was neither a home-based business owner at that specific time, nor was I actually, you know, going to run a business during a home-based business during Ramadan. I was not affected. So whether or not the authorities allowed it, I was not affected either way. Okay, so that could be one reason why I stayed out of it in the early parts, because, you know, I'm someone who is very opinionated. I have a lot of opinions that I was never afraid to share ever since I was a little kid. I was always known in school to be, quite vocal about my dissent on certain things and things like that, right? So it didn't affect me until I heard personal accounts from my friends who are doing home-based businesses, and I know them personally. I know that they are not well off. I know that they're struggling, and they have special needs kids and things like that. And suddenly it just like, oh wow, this is huge. So then what happened was things escalated, and this influential person was like, okay, being I guess belligerent and very standoffish about the whole thing. So people just, especially online, in online communities, they started lynch mobbing her. So it was the first day of Ramadan, and it was so ugly, and I was so sad for people. Just, I was sad for her. I was sad for the people who were quite upset by it. And then I was really sad by the fact that they had a lot of choice words to send to her, and to write about her, and to give her, and to it was not the picture of Muslims and of the kind people that I knew. But even I was like, wow, these people are, gosh, the things they said about her, and the things they said to her, the threats they made about her, the threats they made to her were just in poor taste. And I think that was what got me thinking about the first topic that we're going to talk about. And I know some people might not agree with me, but I think it's relevant right now, and especially during the month of Ramadan, because my take on it is clear. That person or the government doesn't determine our provisions, our rizqi. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, as a Muslim, as a practicing Muslim with faith, iman, and taqwa, we do our best. We do our best and put in our best efforts to obtain something. But at the end of the day, the one who's responsible for giving us whatever money we have, whatever food we have on the table, is really God. So Allah is the provider. So if you don't have the opportunity to continue your business during this holy month, maybe ask from Allah, and not put the blame, or not be nasty, not be vile and rude towards someone. To me itself, I was like, oh, okay, well then, what do we do? Maybe we'll just stay at home and better ourselves, better our ibadah, and we just wait for things to clear up, and we wait for our efforts to pay off. I felt that it was a sad state of affairs. And so this brings me to Surah Al-Waqiah, which is the 56th chapter, and it contains 96 verses. People would say that, oh, if you want to have, good provisions, if you want to be assured of, richness, to be assured of the fact that you will never experience poverty, you should read Surah Al-Waqiah before going to sleep, and then read it in the morning when you wake up. That apparently it has no basis in any hadith, but I think it's a good practice anyway, because I do it myself. I think it's quite a sobering surah, because like for instance, one of the things being highlighted in the surah is the theme of reaping what we sow in our lives. So it starts with a description of what happens on the Day of Judgment, right?
إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة إذا رجت الأرض رجا وبست الجبال بسا فكانت هباء منبثا.
It then describes the three groups of people whose fates on that day will be.
وكنتم أزواجا ثلاثة فأصحاب الميمنة ما أصحاب الميمنة وأصحاب المشأمة ما أصحاب المشأمة والسابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون في جنات النعيم.
And then, it just basically talks about how, if you can go to the surah, you can have a look at the translation, the English translation, and see how, for instance, verses 62 to 76, they bring us to the realization that Allah will provide. Allah will, Allah has power over everything. He has power over how the plants grow. He has power over how the rain falls onto earth, and that rain in itself, it is a provision. It's water. Water brings and gives life to us as human beings, because it makes the crops grow, it makes vegetation grow, it is something for us to drink after it's being desalinated and all that. So it then brings us back to the realization that nothing of whatever we achieve, and nothing of our successes, our accolades in this world are truly ours, right? Because there is a higher power at work. So in a way, we need to trust in Allah to provide for us rizqi in the same way He provides for, like, the birds that leave their nests in the early morning. These birds have no university degrees, they have no BCPs, they have no DR plans whatsoever. And yet, they still find some form of food one way or another. They still get home, they get back into their nests at the end of the day quite full. And then, they bring, worms or whatever to their kids. They're little birds. Kids, yeah, whatever, they're children. Okay, little birds, okay? So they bring like food for the little birds in their nests, and the little birds don't go hungry. They actually, grow from the food that Allah provides for the birds. So the theme of it is really, it's there. It's to trust in Him and to trust in Allah. That, even in the darkest of moments, He will provide for you if that's what He wills. And you know what? Sometimes we don't even deserve it. But He still provides for us. That is the beauty of His love, His unconditional mercy for us. But of course, we need to tie our proverbial camels first and then commit our affairs entirely into His hands. Because yes, we need to make the effort, make some effort, any effort at all, and not just like, okay, you just, lie there and say, oh, okay, that's the end, that's the death of my home-based business, and let's not just do anything, let's just lie down and die. No, you're not supposed to do that in Islam. So you go to the SSO, you go to the family service center, whatever it is, try to get help, because during this time the government has a lot of schemes available for people who are in financial need, and just tap on it for the time being, and get help somehow, because you need to make some form of effort to make sure that your kids are being fed, to make sure that that your life can go on during this Ramadan, at least in a even at the bare minimum. Because like if you're thinking of the bigger things, the non-day-to-day things, like your mortgage, for instance, all those things, there's a moratorium right now, and all your payments to the government, things like that, they have been halted. So you don't have to worry about those things at the moment, but you just have to worry about putting food on the table for your kids, right? And medication for your ill dependents, things like that. But at the end of the day, Islam doesn't teach us to lynch people publicly. And even if she was in the wrong, I think it's quite unbecoming, especially during Ramadan. It's very sad for me to see that. So as maybe I had some opinions on the matter before before it's I guess resolved in a way right now, as of now. But I refrained myself. It took a lot of effort, but I just did not want to add fuel to the fire, because it was quite it's very ugly. People are understandably upset, very understandable, yes, but that's what our Prophet taught us, to hold our tongue, to exercise control over our behavior and our words, because Islam does not teach us to be like that. So I think it's quite a good thing now that the matter has been resolved, and home-based businesses can operate after whenever, and I'm so happy for the people who will not be losing their income from this. And I do support home-based businesses, assuming you had given all those nasty comments and everything about the person, about her family, about her kids, whatever. Are you proud of them? Like, if you look back, if you go back to your comments, would you delete them now? If you're proud of them, then that's going to be a problem, because it was it was unbecoming to begin with to just do that, right? And then it's even worse to do it during Ramadan, and then you get your good deeds, your pahala, taken away from you when you speak ill of someone, even if it be the truth, because it could be considered as backbiting in Islam, right? So sometimes it might be just better to just keep our temper in check. I mean, not sometimes, all the time. It's good to keep our temper in check and not do or say things that we would regret, that we wouldn't be proud of our kids reading. One of the things that you need to realize about the beauty of Ramadan is that, God's mercy is really multiplied during this period. And I don't even have to quote anything, but even from my personal perspective, I actually have experienced a lot of wonderful blessings and just a lot of charity from people, and people who are willing to work together to make things beautiful for other people. And I think that's amazing. And even when you talk about the whole home-based business thing, people rallied together, people petitioned the president. I mean she wrote about it, of Singapore, president of Singapore, and they rallied government bodies, the business chambers and things like that. And even though the incident brought out the very worst of people, it also brought people together and rallied people together. And I think that's something quite amazing. And in the spirit of Ramadan, I think that's the way it should be. So if anything like that ever happens again, I hope that the community would actually get together to find a solution instead of bashing people, instead of being contrary to the spirit of Ramadan. So yeah, and this is something that's trivial, but I don't know if you noticed, but during Ramadan, the first few days of Ramadan, it was raining every single day. And rain in Islam is it's a way, it's seen as a form of blessing, as mentioned earlier. Rain gives life to vegetation. It feeds people in the ecosystem, in the scientific ecosystem. And so the past few days it has been raining every single day. Some days it's just light rain, and then some days it's heavy torrents of rain. And I was doing deliveries, and yeah, I got caught in the rain, and it's just stupid of me to not bring an umbrella, but because I had already left the house, and I was thinking, oh yeah, it's just gonna be a minor rain, and then it turned out to be a full blast, thunder, lightning, buckets and buckets, imperial buckets of rain falling down. I mean, I was drenched through, but I had a job to do. So yeah, and I just want to share with you, for those who don't already know, that every time it rains, one of the things that we can do as Muslims is that we can pray, we can recite a special dua, which is, it's not really like a dua, like a long dua per se. It's just these words, Allahumma sayyiban nafi'an, which means, oh Allah, please let this rain be a beneficial one. So beneficial, there can be any interpretation of beneficial. The rain is seen as something that not just gives life, but it extends to the whole ecosystem, like the rain itself. Sometimes, okay, because it's raining, the delivery riders get a surge in, in their orders, in their deliveries, because there are people, who are stuck at home. So, it's extra income for them in that sense. And then because of the rain, there will be people who need cabs and things like that. So, there's extra income for them. So in Islam, we see the rain as something that is beneficial and that is positive. I didn't used to have this mindset actually. So I used to be like, oh, dude, it's raining. It's cramping my style. I can't leave the place. I'm drenched, everything, right? But then, in the past few years, I've taken to reciting the dua for every time it rains, and Allahumma sayyiban nafi'an. Even if you recite it, a few hundred times while you're being caught in the rain or something, trust me, even if something immediate doesn't come to you, like the so-called beneficial thing that you are praying for, right? Even if it doesn't come now, it will come to you in some form or another. Trust me on that. I've really experienced it, so I think that's that's something that is worthy of sharing with you. So Allahumma sayyiban nafi'an every time it rains. Okay, I will put it in the video so you can slowly memorize it, or or you can just Google it every time it rains, and then you can recite the dua. So yes, I hope that in terms of that aspect, you understand that Surah Al-Waqiah is a good surah for you to practice reading. Of course, it's 96 verses, so it's quite a fair bit, even if you're a born Muslim. Moving on to the next surah in our 8 at 3 discussion about rizqi and provisions and blessings from God. Let's now talk about Surah Al-Falaq. As to why I have decided to couple Surah Al-Waqiah together with Al-Falaq, even though it's supposed to be 8 at 3, so this is like 9 at 3. But, never mind. We'll count them as one. Yeah. Surah Al-Falaq is something that's actually very close to my heart, in the sense that, as Daishan has always been the leader in Chinese food, and we've been around for many years, and we have been the OG and the gold standard of halal Chinese food, right? Acknowledged by a lot of people, and we've had great success in terms of reach, and in terms of we've had lots of paying celebrities and things like that, famous people who are our customers, and especially the Chinese community, the revert Chinese community that has always come back to us and said that, wow, I'm so happy that I found you, because your food is the closest I can get to my comfort food, the things that I grew up eating, but it's in halal form, and there's no other place that sells it. So it's quite uplifting. It's very heartening, and it serves the purpose, right? Everything just falls into place, because I set out wanting to do this because I wanted to reach out to the underserved Chinese Muslim community. And as someone who myself, I also have always been looking for food that is up to my standards out there, in halal form, and there hasn't been very much and whatever that we can find is usually like, you know, it's been altered to suit the predominantly Malay palates that make up the market in terms of the halal sector of society, I guess. Yeah, going back to why Surah Al-Falaq has been a very central surah in my life, in terms of, you know, where the business is concerned, is because it is a surah where you read
قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما حلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد.
If any of you have been to our shop before, back when we had our shop at both in Ang Mo Kio and also in Jalan Besar, yeah, you would have seen that one of the things that we put up is actually the last line of Surah Al-Falaq. I don't know, I really don't understand it, because like I'm just doing my thing, I'm just selling my stuff. I don't copy anyone, I don't bother with anyone else, because, you know, unless you're really worthy of my standards, I actually I don't care about you. That is actually the basis of my view of other businesses who are so-called competing with us. Yeah, I actually don't. I'm not insecure about anything. So because I know that, you know, my standards are there, my uniqueness is there, and yeah, it's there's a whole story, there's a whole backstory to everything that I'm doing right now. So there's, you know, even if you were someone who wanted to copy every single thing that I'm selling, your story would never be the same as mine, because I have a very unique story behind it, and, you know, my experiences are very unique in all the world. Like why I had to start cooking and learning Chinese food when I was still young, and I was, you know, like I had to provide for myself. I had to, you know, even slog and slave under various very experienced Chinese food chefs and everything. So like you didn't go through all that. You didn't have to, you know, go through the same sort of training, rigorous training and everything. So I don't see how your food is the same as mine. And besides, you know, I have my following, I have my, you know, sincere intentions, I have everything that I need, and I don't understand why people are jealous of us either. So unfortunately though, you know, that the surah, the line from the surah is actually, it was actually more of a preventive thing until it became true. Yeah, the jealousy and the envy from other competitors. Some were people I knew, like they would be stalking, you know, my business, either like really in person. Yeah, I've had people like send people to my stall, you know, to my bazaar stall, and they thought that, you know, they were not being, you know, noticed, but I was like, you know, behind somewhere, and I saw them, and I'm like, okay, this is very strange. But and then I had people who were like stalking online, following the account. They just want to see you fall. They just want to see you suffer. because I don't know what. So I took to internalizing this exact line from Surah Al-Falaq, because it's the whole surah itself, it's okay. Like if we were to go through it, and because it's a short surah, it's been a long show, a long session of talking. I don't know if anyone else is still listening at this point, but I hope you are. You can listen in parts, I guess, like that would be good. But yeah, I understand. So if you actually look at the surah line by line, the first line, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, it means say, قُل means say, I seek refuge with Allah, the Lord of the daybreak. So it is an invocation of seeking protection, right? I seek refuge with Allah. And then the second line is مِن شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ, which is from the evil of what Allah has created. So He is the Lord of the daybreak, and He has created a lot of entities in the whole universe. Things ranging from animals to human beings to shaitan to jinn to all sorts of terrestrial and extraterrestrial creatures. So the second line is about seeking protection from the evil of these creatures, because obviously when He created all the creatures in the world, in the universe, they are good ones and they are the evil ones, right? So the second line is an invocation where you seek protection from the evil. The third line, وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ. So it means and from the evil of the darkness of the night, as it comes with its darkness. So this part is also similar. It is an invocation where we seek protection from all these dark and evil things. The fourth line, وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ, which means seeking protection from Allah from the evil of the witchcraft practitioners when they blow in the knots. I mean, that's very literal and very it ties back to the other places in the Qur'an where they not very desirable people, they practice sihr, witchcraft, and things that are fasiq, or things that are anti-Islamic, that are not within the realms of your belief and your submission to Allah and Allah alone. So when you practice witchcraft or this kind of black magic, you are considered having done something that's a huge great sin. So one of the things that apparently is their practice in this black magic is that they would tie knots and then they would blow in it certain invocations to the devil and things like that in order to negatively influence someone's life somehow. And this part of the surah is very personal, because sometimes in life you encounter certain people who are not happy with you, who are jealous of you, who are envious of you, and it's not within your control, because certain things in life, while theoretically it should work, like for instance, oh, your business is great, it should work because it fills a gap in the market, and then like the food is good, blah blah blah. But sometimes there are roadblocks, and let's just leave it at that. So this fourth line in the surah, it's an invocation for you to seek Allah's protection from the evil of the witchcraft and the black magic that that people practice. So it's something very useful, even if you don't believe in these things. And for the longest time, for most of my life, for decades, I didn't believe in these things because I don't grow up in a culture where there's like witchcraft or black magic being practiced. But then once I crossed a certain threshold and certain things happened in my life, I was like, oh wow, I need the protection. I definitely need the protection. So that's the fourth line. And then the final verse of Surah Al-Falaq is وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. Now, hasad is translated as envy, and hasad is a very, very real thing, because sometimes people are just, it's not a manifest kind of feeling, or it's not something that you can see. And when it happens, it can even happen to anyone who is actually not aware of it. Sometimes it's a different class from being jealous, because when you're jealous, it's a very actively negative feeling, right? So you're a wife, and then a female person, a woman flirts with your husband, and you get very jealous, especially if your husband responds to that person. But anyway, so you get jealous, and then you flare up, right? So you can see it, you can feel it. But then envy is a different level altogether, because maybe someone's got a more luxurious car than you do, and you're like, oh, it's not really manifest, but it is somehow in your mind, and you're not happy for the person, and you don't wish the person good. So it's very easy for us to go away thinking that, oh, we're still good, because we don't have a raging jealousy about the person. But then there is this underlying feeling that we don't address, and that is something that is very dangerous. It's dangerous, and it also is something that is prevalent apparently in our community, and it's not something that is good. It should be eradicated in our community, because somehow, like, when people see that you're successful, you've got this, you've got that, people are not happy for you. It's quite upsetting, because I think, like, I'm happy whenever I see people doing better than me, and especially if they've worked really hard for it and they deserve it, or and especially if they're nice people in character and in deeds and everything, and like, it's not a show, it's genuine. When I go on Instagram, I like to see Ustaz Ebit Liu, for instance, and look at how he's doing so well in his business, that he can help other people. It's amazing, and it fires you up, because you you feel like, oh, okay, it's very inspirational, it's very motivational, because you want to be the same sort of contributing person in society like him, you know. So there is no envy there, obviously, because, you know, you're not envying his wealth, that his goodness, his kindness. You're not. You just want to be as good as him, and that's good. But when you're feeling, this person, he thinks he's so good, you know, his richness, his, you know, when you sort of, you know, feel like that, and then you're like, secretly, somehow deep down in your heart, you're like, oh, I wish that he would fail, I wish he would fall flat on his face, I wish he'd get arrested, I wish, you know, his business would fail. But you're not going up publicly to tell him that in his face. That is hasad, right? I mean, it's very insidious. So that is one of the reasons why this surah is very important, in my opinion, because you are seeking protection from Allah, asking Allah to protect you from the evil of the envier when he envies. Min sharri hasidin idha hasad. So it's a very powerful dua. Very powerful dua indeed. So if there's one thing that, you know, you as either as a revert or, you know, as a regular Muslim can take away from this surah, it would be this last line. And especially if you're in business or if you're a public figure, because not everyone who follows you likes you. That is the reality. People, sometimes they just follow you to watch you fail, to watch you, you know, make a fool of yourself, to watch you, to just watch you. They just want to show. So you don't know what's in their minds, what's in their hearts, what they're praying for when it comes to you. So it's always best for you to read and recite Surah Al-Falaq to protect yourself, not just from, you know, all these external forces that you can't see, that are, you know, in the universe, but also from the people around you whose hearts you cannot see and you cannot decipher. So with that, let's end this session, because it's gone on for quite a while. I know, I'm so sorry if it has dragged on for much longer than I intended. I would like to end with sharing something that you might find useful. A short dua that we can practice in our daily lives. It's really something that ties in with the topic of provisions and rizqi. Maybe I'll share two short du'as for us to learn and recite when it comes to asking for provisions or hoping for Allah's blessings in our business, in our work, in our food, in our daily life. So one of them, the first one, is Allahumma kfini bihalalika an haramika wa aghnini bifadlika amman siwak. O Allah, suffice me with what you have allowed instead of what you have forbidden, and make me independent of all others besides you. The second dua is Well, some people say to recite it like in the morning, in the early morning, like, you know, the first thing in the morning. But for me, I actually practice it like all day. It is Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an wa rizqan tayyiban wa amalan mutaqabbalan. It's probably a little mouthful for you if you are maybe not familiar, but slowly. So it's a very useful dua for you to recite anytime at all, to me, because like you could be on the bus on your way to work, for instance, and it's applicable. You could be, you know, like cooking for your family, and it's applicable because, you know, Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an wa rizqan tayyiban wa amalan mutaqabbalan. So basically it means, O Allah, I ask from you beneficial knowledge, good provisions, and good deeds that are accepted by you. So basically an invocation where you seek that Allah makes everything you learn throughout the day, whether it be, you know, whether in formal learning or not, or, you know, even in your observation of certain human behaviors, maybe that, you know, you can learn something beneficial, ilman nafi'an, that can, you know, sort of better or purify your character, your heart. That is a beneficial knowledge, right? And then rizqan tayyiban is provisions or rizqi that is beneficial also, and halal, of course, right? So you're asking for that, you know, so you're asking for whatever that you are earning to be halal and good. Wa amalan mutaqabbalan. You're asking for Allah to accept your good deeds, right? So please accept, you know, whatever that I do that is good, that pleases you. So I think this is a very it's a good dua to memorize. It might take some time, but, you know, just write it out, you know, in the transliteration. If you can't, you know, read it in Arabic, right? So it's fine. So you just write it out in the transliteration and then you memorize it. You can even make it into a zikr, like, you know, like you can just recite it over and over again, which is what I do. So that brings us to the end of this 8 at 3 session. As it's the first one, I think it's quite unpolished, unscripted, obviously, because if it was scripted, I wouldn't be going on and on about, you know, many things. I have a lesson plan, yes, but it's all in point form. And even as a teacher back in those days, I would tend to elaborate on, you know, the themes and the topics in a way that is quite comprehensive. So I don't know, I mean, this is really not that comprehensive, but it's quite in-depth in a way. And I hope it has been beneficial to you. I hope that is ilman nafi'an, right? So here's me signing off. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. The next episode of 8 at 3 will be discussing the themes in Surah Al-Fil. For the third episode of 8 at 3, we'll be discussing Surah Yusuf. For the fourth episode of 8 at 3, we'll be discussing Surah As-Safat. For the fifth episode of 8 at 3, we'll be discussing Surah Al-Alaq. For the sixth episode of 8 at 3, we'll be discussing Surah Ali Imran. For the 7th episode of 8 at 3, we'll be discussing Surah Al-Qiyamah. And for the 8th episode of 8 at 3, we'll be discussing Surah Al-Ma'un. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again in the next episode. Goodbye.